you will not be a man. You cannot be a man. And you're going to constantly be jumping from master to master, trying to please everyone. And you're not going to please anyone. Instead, you have to just decide as a man, what do you believe is right? What do you want in your life? And to start listening to that inner voice, listening to your own judgment and relying on yourself and saying, whether I'm right or wrong, I'm going to do what I want to do, what choices I make. I'm not going to do it based on pressure, on guilt, on what other people have as expectations of me. I'm going to do what I'm going to do, and I will suffer the consequences if necessary for my actions. That's taking full responsibility for your life. That's stepping up and making your own choices.
Episode. This is our 275th episode of A to the Show. We've been doing this 275 straight days now, meeting people around the world. Now we land in Florida, where John is. Nice to meet you, John.
Yeah, nice to meet you guys.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, John. Yep.
John, you talk about the Bulldog Mindset, and I love watching your videos because I've learned a lot about how to become a better man for myself. And to the people around me and having that responsibility. I do want to ask you, John, there's like a lot of controversy with talking about, with people who talk about masculinity and manliness right nowadays. Why do you think some people are afraid of men becoming masculine?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think there's a lot of reasons behind this. I think that one of the reasons is because there's this push to sort of neutralize genders, to make it like all a societal construct, and to say that, well, anyone can be anything and everyone can be whatever they want. And while that's true in some respects, it sort of ignores the kind of the fundamental biology that we have as human beings. So I think that what ends up happening is that you've got a lot of kind of our society has become very feminist, right? This whole idea of like, women are just as good as men at everything, and women can be like men. It's almost like what's happened is that instead of women trying to gain freedom and independence and to escape oppression, they've really sort of pushed down and said that masculinity and men are bad, right? But then at the same time trying to become men, right? Like the masculine definition of a man, right?
So would you say they're becoming the oppressor in their own sense?
Their own oppressor, right? Because what ends up happening is that, I talk to women all the time. I coach men, I coach women sometimes as well. And most women, like in their heart of hearts, and they won't admit this, but most women, they want a strong man that they can settle down with, have some kids, have a family, like they'd like to raise the kids themselves and not have to go to work, and to have a man that they can depend on that is a strong, dominant man, not an asshole, not a controlling jerk, not, a compassionate, strong man. A lot of women don't think they'll find it, and society and other women tell them, that's not, they kind of suppress that. And that's unfortunate. So I think that's what's going on. There's also another aspect of it, which is that a lot of guys teaching masculinity are doing it from a perspective of just as bad as feminism, right? They have a victim mentality, right? And they are saying, women are so bad. They're basically teaching men to hate women because, all women are hoes. They're all thoughts, right? They're all just like this. You can't trust them. They're only good for sex, right? And that's also not correct. And that also gives like teaching masculinity a bad rap, right? So it's sort of, I think both of those things kind of make this a controversial subject to talk about.
Right. And there's also like a lot of noise. Like those things are the people who are the loudest. I mean, I know people like you are great because you do teach people not to be a victim, right? And take accountability. So I'm just wondering, so for me inside, we're both in our 20s, we're young guys. How do we filter through the noise, and what should we be focused on so that when we are older, we can reap the benefits?
Yeah. I mean, the biggest thing is, and this is what it means to be a man, is to have your own value system and to use your own judgment above all other things, right? And so if you're looking at society to approve you, or your father to approve you, or your family to approve you, or women to give you that approval, then you will not be a man. You cannot be a man. And you're going to constantly be jumping from master to master, trying to please everyone, and you're not going to please anyone. Instead, you have to just decide as a man, what do you believe is right? What do you want in your life? And to start listening to that inner voice, listening to your own judgment, and relying on yourself and saying, whether I'm right or wrong, I'm going to do what I want to do, what choices I make. I'm not going to do it based on pressure, on guilt, on what other people have as expectations of me. I'm going to do what I'm going to do, and I will suffer the consequences if necessary for my actions. That's taking full responsibility for your life. That's stepping up and making your own choices and decisions. So that's the key thing, right? Everyone wants to put you on their team. They want you to take sides, right? And this is a very popular thing today, right? In politics, right? It's all about taking sides. The other side is the enemy. We know that the other side can't be the enemy. Everyone is not evil on the other side, whichever side you're on. That's not, we're all kind of built the same way. The same thing with the whole gender thing, right? It's like, oh, well, you're a feminist, or you're, or the whole racist thing. You can't just be against racism. You have to be anti-racist. Otherwise you're the enemy too, right? It's like everyone wants to pull you in to whatever side, and you have to say, no, I'm not anyone's side. I'm not on anyone's team. I don't follow any playbook or rules. I do what I want to do as a man, and I make my own choices. I live by my own principles.
Right.
But isn't it like very hard to make your own decision nowadays with all of this? Okay, so like Ali described it, it's noise, and it's like indirect influence from your surroundings and your environments. It could be even your friends, people you trust, and like they directly have an impact on your own opinion and how you think about things. So how are you supposed to just like be like, okay, no, I don't want to be on your side. I just want to be. How is someone supposed to make his own decision nowadays? Like, how is he supposed to make the decision?
And that's what they were supposed to teach you in school, right? How to become an independent.
Right.
because that's what it's about, right? It's about not just reading something and saying, okay, that must be true.
Right.
It's analyzing the information. It's deciding, what do you think about that, right? You're supposed to read a novel, a famous novel, and you're not supposed to give you're supposed to say, well, what does that mean to you? What do you take from this? What is, to form your own understanding of things. So it's a matter of practice. Now, one good thing that you can do, right, is to control your environment, right? That can help, right? Because your identity is shaped by your environment. So instead of being around people that have these questionable principles, that are not principles at all, that aren't living by principles, that are, going along with society, going along with popular opinion, instead, make your environment books, make it authors that had from long ago that had good things to say. Read some Stoic philosophy. Read, there's a ton of good books. Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, Psycho-Cybernetics by Dr. Maxwell Maltz, Awaken the Giant Within, Tony Robbins. There's a ton of really good books. Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. Like, make that your environment, and that will influence you instead of the craziness that's going on today. And then really just take some time, right? For me, a lot of my YouTube videos, a lot of the content I produce, some of it comes from inspiration from other things, but most of it is like, I take all the information I'm getting, I synthesize it because I run it by myself internally, and I spend time thinking about things. I don't look for someone else's answer, and so I try to come up with my own answer. Okay, well, based on all these things and what I learned and what I know about people and the behaviors that I see, what do I believe about it? See, we're so trained to not ever ask that question, what do I truly believe about it? Instead, when someone asks you, what do you like, or what do you think about this, we're almost trained to automatically go grab a Facebook headline or something we saw on Instagram or something someone else told us and parrot that. We don't understand why. It's not our own opinion. It's not our own. So we really have to train ourselves to say, what do I actually think about this? And to go and examine within yourself, regardless of what other people have said.
Right. Something I would also recommend is even if you do have a side and you're not, even if you're sure about it, you should study the opposing side, because you never know, like maybe there's something that's a good point on the other side that could maybe change your mind or sway you or put you in a neutral ground. And instead of, because like most people nowadays, when they have an opinion, even though they're not 100% sure about it, they'll just find any kind of article, or for example on Facebook or Instagram or any kind of post, and just use it to reinforce, even though it could be wrong or not, or false, or anything like that.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I think that's a really good point. It's very true. You know, and you know, one thing I'd add to that too is that you have to stop demonizing people, right? Like you have to, like,
Right.
what's
Yeah.
what's greatly missing from society today is compassion.
Right. Yeah.
Having, like, and it's funny because the very people that that lack compassion are the ones that are trying to say that people need to be more compassionate, but they're not themselves, right? And so, like, it's just a matter of giving the benefit of the doubt to people and being like even like, you know, like let's take Trump, for example, because he's a very hated and loved figure, right? If you hate Trump, maybe you like acknowledge, okay, this guy is not the worst guy in the world. Maybe he's trying to do the best that he can. You might disagree with him. You might think whatever, it doesn't matter. But maybe you like have that viewpoint instead of like a completely, he's evil viewpoint. Or same thing, I could say the same thing with Biden, right? You know, I don't particularly like Biden, but you know, maybe he's trying to do what he thinks is best. And I can see the good in that. And you know what I'm saying? Right. Again, I don't have to agree with someone's like what they're doing or something, but I don't have to demonize them. They're not evil. They're not the enemy just because they believe something different. We kind of went from a place where, you know, the most healthy place we can be is when we have open debates and dialogues, and it's like, okay, well, you think this, I think this, right? And we discuss things. But we've moved from like discussing ideas to like categorizing people automatically into bad or evil if they disagree with us. So now, you know, you can't have discussions about ideas. It's like, well, if you disagree, if you don't believe this thing, then you must be evil. Right. And that's there's no room for growth. Right. When
one thing I just wanted to go back on is when you mentioned the point of the compassion, and like when the most people who are lacking compassion are the ones who are fighting for it. When we mentioned earlier, for example, when women are becoming the oppressor, so this woman empowerment movement is, it's not a bad concept. It's just like the implementation of it became in a way perverse, in my opinion. I don't know if I used the right word, but yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, you got what I meant. And basically, it went in a completely different way than it should have gone, in my opinion. So
yeah,
there's lack of compassion, right? That's true. I mean, I think like everyone is scared at some point. Everyone is scared, right? Some people are scared, especially we were talking about, like, people have sides, right? If you don't have a side, you get outcasted, and then you get canceled, and no one wants to get canceled. John, I know you've been like canceled, or you've received kind of hate on the internet at some point. How do you did it hurt you a lot, or were you just Bulldog mindset moving on?
Yeah, I mean, it didn't matter very much to me. I mean, it hurt me financially. Probably cost me, you know, $400,000 or $500,000.
Oh.
Yeah, and they wanted me to basically apologize, and then I would be free from the loss. And I said no. I said I'm not. I'll just suffer the consequences. But you know, I didn't really think much about it. You know, it is what it is. I don't. You know, I make my actions and stand where I stand as a man, and then whatever happens, happens. I don't get to control the outcome of things, and I don't regret decisions that I made consciously just because the outcome turned out to be bad in some respects. But I mean, ultimately there were some gains from that, right? I gained back the rights for one of my books that got unpublished, and I self-published it and made more money doing that. You know, there's benefits from that. But the position that I was in was that I'm financially independent, so I could survive a canceling, right? There's not a lot you can do to me. I mean, you can unpublish my books, you can have people say nasty things about me, or say they're not going to work with me. It doesn't matter, right? It doesn't affect me because I have real estate, I have investments, passive income. You know, you can't make me shut my mouth. But in general, you know, the canceling works really well because most people don't have that. And so the thing is, like, you know, and I think this is really important to understand today, especially if you're, you know, as a young man, is that you do not have freedom of speech unless you have financial freedom first today, right? Because you cannot say whatever you want, you know.
Wow. I guess that's step one. Huh?
Yeah.
Step one, get financial freedom.
That's why it's so important. If
Yeah.
you want to be able to say what you want to say, you know, you need to have the financial backing.
All right. So John, you made a bunch of your money doing real estate, right? When you were younger, you invested a lot in real estate and were able to grow it. I think our generation's a little different, or is it different? Do you recommend someone who's young, our age, to make money, invest in real estate, or is there something else we should be investing in?
Yeah, I mean, I think real estate is still, I don't think there's really much of a difference. I think people like to complain and say, oh, it's harder now. It's not harder, it's different, right? It's just like, it's the same thing, right? You know, people always say, oh, well, you know, if I could have been on the internet with the website selling things back 15 years ago, it was so much easier than, I mean, there was hardly any competition. You could make tons of money. Yes, but the technology was so difficult that it was very difficult to set up a store and sell things on the web. Now you can do it in 5 minutes, right? You can just one click your way to having a storefront and selling something. So the barrier to entry was different. So, so you see what I'm saying? It's the same kind of thing. People will always say, oh, it was easier back then, or it's harder now. No, it's different. It's in some ways it's easier now to start a business online. It definitely is easier to start a business. It's harder to become successful at a business, but it's easier to start. Whereas before it was harder to start, but easier to be successful. So you're always going to have competition, right? You know, there's always going to be people want to make money. People want to be rich. So you're going to be competing with all those people. So, you know, you just have to look at what are the opportunities today, right? So as far as real estate, I think real estate's always been a solid investment. I still do real estate investment. All my coaching clients, I get them to invest in real estate because I feel like it's the best returns that you can with very high degree of stability, very low risk. But you know, there's other things to look at today, right? Starting a business, an online business. You know, I feel like everyone should be doing that today because, again, it's so easy barrier to entry. You have to have the commitment to actually follow through and do it. But you know, a really good book I actually recommend is called Millionaire Fastlane by MJ DeMarco. He talks a lot about this and about how to actually become financially independent. But yeah, there's, you know, what I don't like is I see a lot of kind of younger generation taking all their money and putting it all into Bitcoin. And then like, they're like, YOLO, right?
Wait, so you don't condone that? You don't condone the cryptocurrency?
I have a lot of Bitcoin. I've got a lot of Bitcoin and Ethereum, but I'm not putting all my money in there and then praying to God that that's my only shot at being rich, right? That's stupidity, right? I might as well just go to the casino and put it all on black. All right. And then get it over with rather than wait a few years to find out the answer. Right.
Yeah. You'd like to diversify.
Yeah. It makes sense to put some money in cryptocurrency, but it's not like, even if you got rich, right? Let's say you had $50,000, you put it into Bitcoin and it went up to $2 million. You know, what have you actually, did you earn that money?
No.
Are you good? Like, I don't want anything I haven't earned. Okay. Because I've learned that the only things that you'll really enjoy in life and that will really bring you fulfillment are things you've earned. Right? It's like, I don't know, when I was growing up, my dad was always like, yeah, you know, I would buy you a bicycle, but if you go and make the money and buy the bicycle yourself, you'll appreciate it more. Right? It's the same. That
Very
principle
true.
is a timeless principle. It's the same thing today. So all these, you know, young guys trying to get rich on cryptocurrency, don't get me wrong. I put money in Bitcoin. I believe it's going to go up, whatever. But that you have to still make yourself a man. You still have to actually earn your way and pay your dues and figure out a way to become financially successful. Just throwing your money into an investment and then suddenly getting rich, even if it works, you're going to be a loser. It's not going to change who you are internally.
A
but
rich loser.
exactly.
You also have to create that mentality that like how to spend your money as well, because like
Right.
people, I notice like people who just get their money for in an easy way without like working hard for it. Okay, they'll be rich and they made it through their investment, but like they're just gonna spend all their cash. They don't have the proper like appreciation of the money they have. They just spend it all, spend it with whatever, buying whatever kind of stuff they want, and on useless stuff, instead of really thinking about what they can do with this amount of cash they have.
Exactly. And the best way to think about it, like this is what I say about money all the time, is money is a multiplier. It will multiply. So if you're a drug addict, okay, and you get money, guess what you're going to be? You're going to be a bigger drug addict. You're going to be a bigger junkie, okay?
Right.
If you don't know how to manage money and you get more money, you're going to be a bigger fool with money. You're going to lose it even faster, right? Now, if you're a good steward and you know how to invest and you know how to make smart financial decisions and run a business and you get money, you're going to increase that. It's going to make you better, right? If you're a horrible person and you get money, you're going to be the biggest fucking asshole that all your friends ever seen. That's why, people are like, oh, money changes people. It makes them an asshole. No. Money magnifies what they already are. So
that's a good one. Yeah, magnifies.
So that's why, but
right. I do notice a lot of people who are like financially independent or really successful. Some of them are assholes, as you were saying. Some of them, and I want to ask you this: a lot of like you talk about becoming a man and growing up and becoming a man. I feel like sometimes when people grow up, they do lose a bit of their childhood curiosity and creativity and imagination, right? So how do you suggest like someone grow up but also maintain that in them?
Yeah, that's a good question. To some degree, you have to let go of some of the childish things, right? Being a man is accepting responsibility in life, and right. But at the same time, again, I think it comes back down to the same question we were talking about like learning to think independently, right? Because everyone's telling you how you should live and what you should do, and you need to do the smart thing and get a job and put money in your 401k and go to college and blah, 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 blah. That's the thing that's killing your creativity and your, if you start thinking for yourself and stop thinking inside of that box, then there's a lot more options open to you. You can be a lot more creative. You can, you can see the world as a more open place, right? I think that so many people are stuck in this kind of narrow view of the path that they have to take in life. With that book I mentioned, Millionaire Fastlane, he calls it the slow lane, or basically the slow lane. And it's kind of like the smart way to go is that when you start thinking outside that box, you become an entrepreneur, you start building a business, you start trying different things, then you're going to have that, you're going to have that curiosity and creativity, because you're going to feel like the world is a bigger open place. It's sort of like playing a video game, and you've got, the difference between a open world video game and one that has an exact like path you have to go on stages, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
In the open world one, you're more creative. You figure out all kinds of weird stuff you can do and things you can skip and stuff like that, because you see it as an open world, right? It's the same thing in life, right? If you see life as, oh, there's a straight path that I have to follow and I have to do these things, your creativity is going to be gone. You're not going to have that. But if you see it as an open, I could do whatever I want. I don't have to go to work today. I could do something else. I could,
mm-hmm.
It's a choice.
Mm-hmm.
Then you're going to have a lot more options.
Right. I mean, wow, that's a great example. I do have this one thing on note. So when you do talk about like going in different lanes and trying different things, I feel like sometimes when I try to do a bunch of different things, I feel like I get nothing accomplished, right? Because my focus kind of I find for myself, I'm best when I'm really focused on one thing 24/7 over like a period of time. So what do you suggest to like, did you have to struggle to find that, or how do you deal with that?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, the thing is, like most people, the reason why they fail in life is because they don't stick to something long enough, right? That one of the biggest secrets to success is commitment. is committing to a thing, right? And one of the things I say is that 5 years, that's the minimum of time that you need to commit to a thing. Not that you need to necessarily do something, but to commit to it, to be willing to commit to it, to become successful. You want to get in shape, get ripped, get jacked, 5 years, right? You want to build a business, 5 years. You want to get good with women, 5 years, right? You can get there, right? So the biggest thing is like picking something and sticking with it for long enough in order to see the results. Because most people, they quit just before they, there's this book called 3 Feet from Gold, right? And it's a story about this guy that he digs this gold mine, and he it's spending all this time and effort, and he finally gives up, and then someone else buys the gold mine, and he didn't make any money, but the new person who buys the gold mine, they dig just a little bit more, and it was like he was 3 feet from a huge vein of gold, but he just stopped digging too early, just 3 feet away after all that. And that's where a lot of people end up at, because it's hard, because it's hard to do a podcast for multiple years, right? To hang on for 3 years, especially when you feel like no one's listening or no one's watching your YouTube channel, right? So the big thing is to narrow things down, to pick a few things that you want to focus on, and then to stick with them for long enough.
Right. Wow.
By the way, something I also wanted to talk about, I wanted to go, if I want to touch back a bit to the previous point about separating being a man and your inner child, in a sense. So what I noticed, something that does help, is having awareness, in a sense. So I remember I saw in one of your videos that Ali sent me, was that when you were talking about how you need to, it was basically about sex and not in marriage or something. I forgot the name of the video, but it was basically about men losing their masculinity within a relationship. And you touched on a point about how you as a man should be aware of how a woman feels with her emotions, and you should be aware of how she is talking or reacting, or is like maybe she's upset, and you should be understanding, and it's not a sign of weakness. And I agree with this. And this is not only about and I feel like it's not only within a relationship, it's also within your daily life. You should be aware of how things are going on, how to react, and how to be like what kind of reaction you're supposed to have with maybe with someone else, or if a bad event occurred to you. You should have this concept of understanding and accepting what it is, without having this negative letting this having a very bad or a negative effect on you.
Yeah, so I would call that really like a Stoic mindset, right? Coming from the ancient Stoics, right? Actually, a good example of this is from Avengers, the character in the movie of Thanos, right?
Yeah.
Right? Because he could kill you, and he's not angry at you.
Yeah.
And he might even have some compassion for you. Like, yeah, I can empathize with your situation. I still have to kill you, but I empathize with you. You know what I mean? Like you don't detect. Purpose. Right. Yeah. He's aware. He has that's how I look at it as being a man. It's like so many people think being a man is being this tough, like no vulnerability, I'm the boss, right? Dominant, like controlling type of guy. But being a man is really I think the greatest gift that you have to give to this world as a man is love, first of all. And that's how you should be operating your life, is from a point of compassion, and really doing things in such a way that, again, you're not emotionally connected to the thing. You have empathy for people, but again, if you have to do something that someone's not going to like, you don't do it out of an animosity or I'm going to get you back or whatever, you did this to me. It's more like, yeah, I see where you're coming from. I get it. I understand your situation, but I have to do this way. I have to cut you out of my life because you're not good for me. It's not, you've violated this boundary. I'm not angry at you. I'm not upset at you, but I can't talk to you anymore. That's just how it is, right? That's the way to go, right? And that's such a hard path but it's like you said, it's about being aware. It's about empathizing with situations and realizing, it's hard. I was just talking to someone on my YouTube channel today, Ryan from Order of Man, and we're talking about how it's like guys either are like nice guys or they're assholes, and they think that this is false dichotomy. And it's like, no. Where you actually want to be is in the middle, where you have true compassion and empathy for people, but you have a backbone. You're not going to let people walk all over you. You're going to make your decisions, right? You're going to accept the consequence for your actions, right? And it's about being that place of, what the Stoics would call tranquility, having, an inner peace, a tranquility. And it's so rare, because so many guys, like I said, they're being just walked over, right? And again, I think in that video I was talking about like a sexless marriage or something like that.
Yeah,
and
that's the name. Yeah,
they let their wife or girlfriend just do whatever, treat them badly, call them names, sometimes physically abuse them, right? Get away with all kinds of stuff, right? And they don't, or they're just trying to please her all the time, doing whatever she wants, just trying to like not upset her. And that's not the way to go. And then the opposite way is not to just treat her like dirt and be an asshole and be domineering and be like, you have to do what I say, woman, go make me a sandwich, right? It's to be in between, where you're like, I have compassion, I understand, like, almost like,
right.
Listen, like, I understand, like you're upset, whatever. It's fine to be upset, but you can't call me names because you're upset. That's it. That's, You know what I mean? If you do, I'm going to walk. It's cool. And you can do it if you want, but I'm just not going to be here if you're going to do it. That's it. And to really mean that, and that's the key, is like, it's having the backbone, but also having compassion. And it's such a rare combination. But that's what I truly believe it is to be a man, because you're living, instead of by emotion, by principles, right? Principles dictate how you want to be and the values that you hold and how you want to act and what things that you hold to be of higher value. And you live by those. Most people in society live by emotion. They do things because they feel them. They're angry, so they act this way. They're sad, so they act this way. They're jealous, they're whatever it is, they act out of that instead of by principles.
Yeah, I agree. And another point that I want to touch on within the same video, which is also definitely something people should do more often, is not avoid conflict. Right. And I feel like this is something that when we're talking about the people who give up easily or give up too early, they're the type of people who would avoid conflict in a sense, because they just want to, they burn out faster maybe, or they give up easily. Not knowing that they just need to put in a bit more effort. And the same thing in the relationship, when you shouldn't avoid conflict. And also, they shouldn't avoid conflict not only within the relationship, but in life with other people, maybe in their jobs, with their colleagues, or even their boss. I mean, this is just something I feel people should do more often.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. And there's a way to do that, which is a way that is the right way to get into conflict, right? Which is to look at and to empathize with someone and say, maybe even saying phrases like, I understand what you're saying, but I'm going to have to push back on this. Or I get what you're saying. I get probably if I were you, I would think the same way, but here's my perspective. It's a little bit different, right? That's not avoiding conflict. It's you're presenting it, but it's not being abrasive, right? It's not saying, oh, you're wrong, right? Or that's stupid, right? Like that's not the kind of conflict you want to get into, right? Again, if someone cuts you in line, let's say that I have a coaching client that was having this problem, and I was like, he's like, well, what do I do when someone cuts me in line? I'm like, well, what do you think that you do? Or what do you do right now? He's like, well, I just let them, and I get angry internally. and I'm like, why not just when someone cuts you in line, just say, excuse me, sir. Like I was standing here and it appears that you cut in front of me. Right? Just address it, right? Now, if the guy wants to say, oh yeah, so what are you going to do about it? Okay, now he's escalated, and then you can say, hey, well, I would appreciate it if you would if you'd get behind me, if you don't, maybe you're having a bad day or something like that. I get it. But if he still pushes it, then maybe you do have to fight. Maybe you're going to get in a fight because your principles say that, and that's the level of conflict. Like, it was not in your control. You still have to have a backbone, right? But you're trying to avoid getting into destructive conflict as much. You want constructive conflict. Constructive conflict is good. Constructive conflict is when we have differences of opinions, or there's an issue, right? In relationship too, right? Guys are avoiding conflict with their wife or their girlfriend or something. Instead, if they actually address the issue, because maybe there's some need she has that's not being met, or you have a need that's not being met, and you address it in the right way, now you resolve something, and now you're in a better place, right? You've created, it's constructive conflict. But destructive conflict, you used to tear someone down, you used to vent your emotion, right? It's not a benefit for anyone.
This wow. The thing is, with like life, there's a lot of conflict in so many different ways. Society, there's a lot. Sometimes you like think this is the right thing to do, but a lot of wrong things are coming your way. So how do you know how to pick your battles, or are you just rebellious throughout your life in the way you carry yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of it is like, you kind of have to think too sometimes, like, is this the hill I want to die on? Am I willing to die on this hill? A lot of times that's not the case. Like, it's a non-issue. It doesn't really matter, right? Some things do matter. So fight for those things. If it doesn't matter, you don't necessarily have to fight for it. But the biggest thing that influences all that is the principles that you hold. The principles that you hold should be what defines your life and your actions, right? And so you don't really have to make that choice. It's like, oh, I have no other choice because it is a principle. I remember having a discussion with this girl one time about the topic of abortion, right? And she was like, I can't believe, like, and I was like, hey, I would love to believe what you believe about it, but I can't, because my principles, like, you haven't given me any kind of evidence that refutes this higher principle that I have, right? I don't have a personal horse in this race. If you convince me otherwise, I'm happy to change my opinion. I would love to have the more popular opinion on this subject, but I don't, because of these principles. And so the principles have to guide you. But again, like I said, if you're doing it in the right way, now some people are going to, no matter what, get in conflict, get into confrontations with you, and escalate to higher levels of conflict that are destructive conflict, in which case you don't necessarily back down, right? But you don't have to like escalate the conflict further, right? You want to try and resolve the conflict. But again, sometimes you're going to be put in a place where you have to decide, maybe this is the hill you need to die on. Like, for example, with the canceling thing, right? When they canceled me, and they're like, okay, well, if you recant what you said, we'll give you this money, or basically, right? Trying to bribe me. And I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. Right? Because I have a principle of having integrity. And if I made a choice based on money alone, that would not be a decision from integrity. And that principle is a very high principle for me. So no matter what it costs, I'm willing to die on this hill because I have a principle based on that. But again, if you're in some kind of situation with someone and they're arguing you about something stupid, right? Is it really worth it? Like, you know what I mean? Like, is it really a principle? Is it really something that you need to like destroy a relationship or a friendship over? Can you not give them what they want, to resolve that conflict? Like, in many cases, can you make a small sacrifice to be more magnanimous in order to, to subscribe to that higher principle? So, there's some people that will just fight for everything. And that's not a good place to be again. And you have to also to understand the laws of power, right? You have to understand where you are in the power, if you're in a position of power or not. If you're not in a position of power, you don't have a lot of control. So maybe you have to give up some ground and realize you cannot win this battle. Don't fight battles you can't win, right? If you can't win the battle, then you need to concede to the other side. And maybe you get in a position later where you're in a position of power, and then you can do what you want. But again, that's a big thing that we see in society today, is so many people trying to change things and trying to bully people when they're not even in a position of power, right? First go and make some money. First go and build up some forces so that you're actually in a position of power, and then you can bring about change in the world. But just being a loud person yelling at people and expressing your opinion, it does nothing. It does nothing,
Right.
I think it also has to do with the way people want to project their voice in a sense. So like you said that when you're financially secure, that's when you can have that's when you have freedom of speech. That's when you can actually speak and be heard. Now, in a sense, I feel okay. That is true. That because then no one can stop you from speaking. But at the same time, I mean, before you do actually become financially secure, I don't think you should restrict yourself from speech. I mean, obviously there's a way, there's an approach to how you speak and what you want to say. So, and the most important point that I would highlight on is being polite at all times, not forcing your opinion on anyone, not being aggressive, and just being this neutral kind of like attitude, because you don't want to come off as like an asshole or a jerk in a sense, since you're not in that position, especially when you're young. You still have a lot to learn, you still have a lot to experience, and maybe people just will not respect you as much. That's understandable. But I do feel like even at this age we still have the right to express ourselves and have the freedom of speech.
And you do, as long as you're willing to accept the consequences for it, right? And that's
yeah, definitely.
so good. A good example would be, let's say that you're at work, right? You're working for some employer, and some coworkers start discussing gender politics, right? And you have an unpopular opinion. You don't have the correct opinion about gender politics. Don't get into discussion.
Right.
You don't need to. That's not the place. Like, you're there to work. Someone's paying you to work, right? I'm all about standing up for your principles and speaking your mind and stuff like that. But that's just dumb. It's just dumb. Like, you're not going to convince anyone. You're not going to do anything. You know what I mean? That's an example where I would just pass. Just don't have the conversation. You don't have to always, right? You should definitely, be able to express yourself and say what you think and stuff like that. But you have to weigh the consequences in the environment that you're doing it, and what is the effectiveness of what you're doing, right? Because when you speak, if it has no effect, it is worthless, right? It's better to keep your mouth shut, right? So that's the thing that I look at is, right, if you're one person holding up a picket sign, why? What are you doing? You're just wasting your time. You're not accomplishing anything, right? Go and do something else. Go, if you want to really like make an impact, go make some money and then donate that to a charity that is supporting that cause, right? Don't speak where your speech is not going to. It's just like arguing with people on the internet. It doesn't make any sense, right? In fact, a lot of the stuff that I even talk about on my channel, a lot of times I tell guys, don't even discuss this with people. There's no need. And they're like, well, why do you do it? It's like, well, because I have an audience of 260,000 people. When I do this, I'm making an impact. Like, I'm actually influencing you and changing your life and your mate. But otherwise I wouldn't be talking about this. I don't need to, if my barber starts asking me so I don't need to talk to him about it. It doesn't matter. I'm not going to convince him of anything, and I'm just going to piss him off.
Pretty much.
Yeah. So something you also pointed out was like picking your battles, and obviously having your speech causing an impact. So I would say, for example, maybe for us in our 20s, so we don't have as large as an audience as you, but we could still have an impact, but it would be on a smaller scale in a sense. So for example, for me, I would, since I don't have much of a platform yet, or much of an audience to talk to all at the same time, what I do is especially when I do it face to face, I'm the type of person who would like start a conversation with someone, and if there's something we disagree on, that's where it starts opening up, and I try to convince them through that sense, and obviously being as respectful as possible, so that the words are actually accepted and passed, and nothing it doesn't escalate for no reason. So I feel like maybe when you're starting off, so I'm pretty sure, for example, when you started off, you had to build up your audience.
Right.
So in a sense, that's what's kind of what I'm doing, and what we're doing on the podcast or in life in general. We're building up our audience. So you start off small, and then you grow that audience, and then it becomes a bigger impact.
Yeah, no, and I agree with you. The question you always have to ask yourself is what am I accomplishing here? What is the impact that I'm trying to make? What am I trying to do? Right? Am I defending a position against someone who it doesn't matter? Like they're not going to do anything with this information. They're not, right? I think your approach, obviously, I mean, you're correct in this, in the sense that you have to be polite and like have a discussion. But there's some people that it's not even worth having a discussion with because they're not listening. They're just going to be aggressive. And it's like throwing your pearl to swine, right? It's like, it's not even worth to have that discussion. But in cases where you think that you can actually make an impact and actually influence someone's life for the positive, absolutely. I talk to people all the time, one-on-one, that I feel like I can actually influence them and it will actually help them in some way. But there's other people that it's just not worth the time or the effort. So,
and now something I noticed about those kind of people is like when you, usually they'll be obviously very aggressive and like they'll have a high tone and like they just, they're yelling most of the time. I mean, if you just come off as calm, cool, and collected, they're gonna start hearing their own voice and it's just like right. Loud, and they'll be like, it's like, and you're just like talking so calmly and like, right. it's a bit provocative for them. And I've like had it a lot. I mean, especially for my mom or my sisters, like they're it's like I'm just coming off as this very calm guy, and they're like, "Why are you talking so calmly?" And they're still yelling. I'm like, why are you yelling? There's no point of you to be yelling right now. So like once they started noticing this, they'll be like, "Yeah, okay, maybe,"
Yeah. One thing I would add to that is I would say that, and this is kind of just a good thing to do in general as a man, is to have some clear boundaries, right? So that's an example. Like obviously I agree with you. Don't raise your voice. There's no need. Don't get angry. Like you continue to be polite. But when people start crossing your boundaries, when they start yelling in your face and they're yelling at you then you just politely ask them, "Hey, I don't appreciate you talking to me like that or yelling or saying that, and that's all you have to say. And if they continue to do it, you walk away. Your most powerful weapon as a man is your feet. You walk away with it. And again, that applies a lot to right. relationships, girlfriend, wife, and that's it. That's all you have. You don't argue, you don't engage, right. You don't answer why, you don't, get sucked back into it. You just don't allow people to treat you that way. And when you start doing that, you train people how you want them to treat you. You right. get what you accept. And so, that's another way that I would handle those kind of situations is like, I don't even allow people to be in that situation with me. Is you're going to yell at me. You're going to start acting this way. I'm just walking away. I'm not dealing with it.
Yeah. I grew up in a very loud household. So, and I remembered recently, like this one girl,
time's wrapping up.
Yeah, I just want to say this last thing and I'm done. I'm done. Because this really stuck with me. And since I grew up in a very loud household, so my voice would always be loud. And then this girl, I was just like talking to her, like, and we were kind of going on dates and stuff. And then she just like, when I was talking to her, she just out of nowhere popped out and it's like, "Why are you yelling?" I'm like, "Oh,
yeah."
Like I didn't notice. That's the thing. I didn't notice. I'm like, and then she directly apologized because like she didn't mean it. Like it just came out of her. I'm like, "Oh shit." So yeah, like that's just stuff. Then I realized them myself.
Yeah.
Gotta be calm. Well, John, thanks for kind of wrapping up on time here, but I really appreciate what you do. There, for us young guys, there's only a couple really like male like thought leaders on YouTube and on the space, and you're definitely one of them, John. A lot of like male guys, we know, like politicians, they are people who are unprincipled and get swayed by money.
Right.
Versus like people in like some people like anyways, you're one of the great guys we look up to. And thank you very much for coming on our show. Just one last question I'm gonna ask. So of course, watching your videos is a great way to get the Bulldog mindset. Aside from that, how else do you recommend? Is it reading? You say you read. How much do you read? A lot. What else do you recommend?
Yeah, I mean, definitely reading. I would say like the real short answer to this is to bring pain willingly upon yourself. Right?
Thanks, John.
You're going to experience pain in life, so you might as well just bring it before it, pain that is thrust upon you provides you no benefit. pain that you willingly endure and bring upon yourself makes you stronger.
Cool, John. Thanks. All right. Well, this is another episode of A to the Show. Pleasure meeting you. All right. Let's sign out here and peace. Follow John. Subscribe.
Thanks, guys.
Share the conversation and peace. Woo!